So if you're a younger person like me, you graduated high school and then you went off to university, or maybe you started working if you already knew what you wanted to do. And there comes a time when you have to figure out or you have to deal with the food side of things, right? The food part of adulting, where you have to know what do I eat, where do I buy it, how do I cook it, all of that sort of thing. How do I budget, or should I meal plan? And it can be really confusing. And for some people that's harder. For some people, you pick it up right away. But I wanted to make a quick video just talking about and explaining maybe some tips and tricks on where to shop, what to buy, how do you handle this whole thing. And so I'll be looking at it from 3 different price points, or from 3 different budgets, right? So first off, this is your typical college student. After that, maybe you're working and you have some more money, your budget's a little bigger. And lastly, you're cooking for potentially a family, you've maxed out the budget, all right, you can shop for whatever you want. And so I'm gonna talk about how to handle all of those. All right, so first off, college, right? So I just kind of transitioned out of this phase. This is when your budget is usually the smallest, as well as your time. And so you have to figure out how to cope with those 2 things. So first off, where are we shopping? In my experience, the best places to shop are actually like kind of the local grocery chains. So where I'm living currently, that's like Smith's. If you live out in Washington, Oregon, California area, that's like Safeway, whatever the equivalent is out east. Those places are actually great places to shop, and they actually offer a lot of like discounts and stuff for members. So that's like the first tip, is I wouldn't be afraid to sign up for memberships at those places, but also like those are definitely really good places to shop. For most of us at this age, or this budget, right? You can't really shop at like Trader Joe's or like Whole Foods, any of those like really ritzy, I don't know if that's the right term, any of those places. It's a little out of the budget, but these places are a really safe bet. You can still get good quality items, and it's usually pretty cheap. When I go grocery shopping, I sort things out into categories. The first one being protein, after that vegetables, and then kind of just some miscellaneous, whether it be like snacks or just like general carbs, anything I would eat along with like the proteins in my vegetables and that kind of thing. And so that's those are the categories that I'll proceed with. So the first one being protein. The best protein I've found in my experience is actually chicken. Reason being, chicken tastes great. It comes in a lot of different forms. It's super versatile, right? You can chop it, you can, bake it, bone in, whatever. You can do whatever you want with it. You can fry it, make wings, anything like that. So it's super versatile, but also it's really cheap. In my experience, you can get, a case of chicken thighs, which is my favorite. I don't care what people say about chicken breast. I do not like chicken breast, and I've heard all maybe you're just not cooking it right, whatever. I don't buy chicken breast. I hate it, but I love chicken thighs. So with chicken thighs, I can get a case that's usually like a week's worth of chicken thighs, and that's if I'm eating it, for lunch and dinner both days. For anywhere from like 18 to 25 bucks, you can get like a pretty sizable amount of chicken thighs. Or chicken comes in a lot of other forms that you can buy it wherever, but essentially it's just a really cheap protein that's super versatile. Outside of that, look in the frozen aisle. So things like frozen fish, tilapia is a really safe bet. Some people have concerns about, it's not like a good quality fish. For me, in my budget, I don't really care if it's a good quality fish. Tilapia works great for me. And usually it's pre-packaged when it comes frozen, right? So I can like take one serving out and thaw it and then cook it, and I don't have to worry about like what I do with the rest of it. I can just pull it out as I need it. One more thing, pork loin. You can get this at like Walmart. It comes like pre-sliced. It can be anywhere from like 6 to 15 bucks. And that's like good enough usually for anywhere from 2 to 4 days if you're eating it for like every meal. So like 6 to 8 meals ish. Pork loin is a great way to go. It's usually pretty cheap. You can throw it in the oven and it tastes great. Now, a big key, or I guess the secret with your proteins is a lot of people will just cook these and then it doesn't taste very good because you're just eating like dry chicken or like dry pork, whatever. You're just eating some like unseasoned thing, because usually at this age, we don't really know how to season things. We're professional chefs or anything like that. Huge secret, just go get some sauces, right? They have pre-made sauces, like Buffalo Wild Wings does some, Famous Dave's, any form like A1 barbecue sauce, anything like that. They have all of these pre-made sauces, and all you need to do is sometimes marinate your food in it, right? So if it's like a teriyaki sauce, usually I'll put it in a bag and then like marinate whatever, 6 to 12, 24 hours before. But with some things like chicken, if you buy a bottle of like, let's say Asian Zing Buffalo Wild Wing sauce, you can just cook your chicken, drench it up in the sauce, and then that's like good to go. You can actually eat that just like straight off, and it tastes really great. Again, I know that that's not like the most chef way to do things, but usually in this budget, we're not super worried about like what the most chef way to do things is. Jumping into the next group, which would be vegetables. For me, I like to take things that have a lot of nutritional value, but also are pretty easy to prepare. So on my list, that's usually like sweet potatoes, kale, Baby bok choy is really good. I stay away from lettuce because it's like mostly water and you can't really do anything with it. Cabbage is another really good one, or even like those packs of little, bite-sized carrots are like a great way to go in my experience. And so the reason I like these, one, like sweet potatoes have a ton of nutritional value in them. There's a lot of good healthy fats in sweet potatoes, and you can throw them in the oven and they also keep pretty well. So if you don't eat them over the course of the week and like they haven't been baked, right, it's just a potato, so usually they're good to like sit. Kale is really good, and so is baby bok choy because they can be pan fried, and that's super quick, right? It does like shrink up a lot, so like a large bag of kale is usually enough for me for like maybe 3 days, right? So that's like 6 meals ish if I'm eating it with like every meal. But again, super easy to prepare. It tastes great. You can just salt and pepper it, and honestly, it tastes fine, and it's a really great like accompaniment to your proteins. Okay, other stuff, and this is where the secrets come out. For me, one of the best things you can do in this stage of your life, right, when you have a really small budget, is buy rice. So go to your local, Asian grocery store, pick up a 50-pound bag of rice. Personal favorite is like, I don't know, Cal Rose or something, or the Three Ladies brand is another great one. Right, pick up your big old bag of rice, and that will honestly feed you maybe, I don't know, 2 semesters. I feel like it feeds me for like a long time. You can cook it in a pot on the stove. If you have a rice cooker, which I highly suggest, you invest in a rice cooker. You can get some pretty cheap ones. It's a super easy way to get a lot of food very cheaply, and it's really easy to prepare. There are some other things that I would put under this category. So potato is a good just cover-all kind of side to your stuff. It's super versatile, a lot like chicken, right? You can chop up potatoes, you can boil them and make mashed potatoes, you can throw them in the oven and do baked potatoes, whatever. It's a super easy, low maintenance vegetable. It keeps really well if you're not gonna eat it anytime soon, and they're usually pretty cheap. Pasta is another good route to go. You can pick up, pre-made pasta sauces for fairly cheap. Again, noodles are also super cheap, right? You just boil the noodles, throw in some sauce, leave it in the pan, let it heat up for a bit, and then throw your protein on top of it, and it's a great way to have like a filling meal at this price point. So how are we cooking these? One of the biggest things I see among my friend group, and I can really only speak to my experience, but I feel like my experience is pretty standard. I feel like I'm a pretty average guy. A lot of my friends don't cook because they don't know how to use appliances and stuff like that. So just wanted to talk about those super quick. Air fryers are your best friend. Air fryers are so easy. Anybody can cook with an air fryer. They're pretty cheap. You can definitely get them for under, south of $60, south of $100. Get them for pretty cheap. And they cook pretty much anything. You can cook steak, you can cook chicken, you can cook potatoes, whatever you want in an air fryer. So if you don't have one, I would suggest looking at them. If you don't want to spend money on an air fryer, most apartments or most places where you're living usually come with an oven. An oven is already installed in the unit, and ovens are a great easy way to cook things, right? A lot of people are scared of ovens, or I feel like my friend group might be scared of ovens because it is kind of like a bigger appliance and you don't want to light something on fire, like burn your food. Ovens are super easy to work with. So if you don't know how to work with an oven, I definitely suggest trying it out just one time. Throw in some chicken, 40 minutes, 400 degrees, take it out, it should be fine. But I would definitely get familiar with your oven. Don't just fry everything in the pan. I think that's the route a lot of people my age take, is like, if it can't be fried in a pan, I'm not going to cook it. But you will get a lot better food, and you can cook a lot more food if you start using your oven or other appliances in your apartment or in your house. Moving up to the next tier, so this is when you're out on the job, you have definitely a bigger budget to work with. So the places we shop at, this is where we can start to branch out, right? We're no longer just limited to the Smiths, the Safeways, the Walmarts of the world. You can start going to Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. Maybe Whole Foods is still a bit too expensive. One of the best choices I made after bumping up my food budget was actually getting a Costco membership. And Costco is out here in the West. If you're in the East, maybe that's Safeway, whatever, or not Safeway, Sam's Club. But definitely suggest getting a membership to those places. I think the starter membership at Costco is right around $50. I would have to double check that. But for $50, you're definitely getting a lot of discounts over, while you go shopping there. So the chicken, again, is even cheaper, and it comes in massive quantities. So if you're a big eater, which I feel like I'm a fairly big eater, I eat a lot of, proteins during the week. That's definitely something I would look at. Costco is a great investment, and really it's like $50 for a year-long membership is not bad at all. Sam's Club is probably something similar. When it comes to vegetables and really trying to diversify and make sure you're still getting nutrition as you move up in these budget brackets, one of the great things I've found is actually the pre-made salad packets at Costco and similar places. You can get pre-made, whether it be like Caesar salad or I know Costco has like some sort of Asian salad thing, which is really good. And those are one of my favorite things to buy because they are so easily pre-portioned, right? I can just dump out what I feel is like, a fifth of the bag, throw in some dressing, and I can eat that as a meal, and I can continue to eat that throughout the week, right? It'll just keep if you roll the bag back up and stick it back in the fridge. Another great thing to start looking at when you have maybe a little more money in your budget is supplements. I definitely would not suggest getting all of your nutrition from supplements. I think there's a lot of value in getting your nutrition from whole foods, but if you can't do that, or if you feel like you're lacking in any area of your nutrition, supplements are a great way to go. So this looks like, Athletic Greens. It can be any form of, multivitamin, protein supplements, protein shakes, that kind of stuff, just to make sure that you're really getting all of the nutrition that your body needs. Another quick thing that I wanted to touch on at this stage in your life is going out. It can be really tempting to just like go out all the time. And what I would say, there are definitely some influencers that say, oh, like if you make above, X amount per hour, then you should definitely just eat out for every meal because it's more worth your time to eat out and just keep working, like have that time to work as opposed to like cooking and then like having to eat afterwards or something like that. If that's your cup of tea, then definitely go ahead. I personally don't subscribe to that because I maybe in my experience, I've just had so many home cooked meals that I prefer it over like eating out. And so it really just comes down to who you are. But what I would say is, at the very least, set a budget for how much you plan to eat out or how much money you plan to spend on, those food-related expenses over the course of a month. And it can be like a fairly big budget. You don't have to feel like you need to restrict yourself. But I feel like when you're more aware of your money, it just helps in a lot of different aspects of your life, right? And so even just limiting yourself to, like maybe just, I don't know, $200-$300 going out like this month or something like that, it definitely helps. Just keep track of where your finances are going. And that's more just like financial responsibility in my opinion. But if you don't have, any concerns about that, then by all means, just do whatever you were doing. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was family cooking, or when you've been working, and usually, people 30, 40, 50, you've already, gotten married or have a family, or you're cooking for like more than one person, whatever it may be. I don't really have any tips for like where to shop or like how to shop or anything like that. Usually, your budget's pretty set. You can shop for whatever you want. It doesn't really matter, that kind of thing. I do have some general tips though. I would say, for one, don't be too hard on yourself and don't have like super high expectations and think like, oh, I need to cook, 3-course meals for my family every time they come home. Some of my favorite meals as a kid are like eggs, rice, and kipper snacks, which are just like tinned fish. And for me, that's like a comfort food. And I'm sure for my mom, that was like a way easier way to handle dinner because you just cook rice and then cook a couple eggs and it's fine. But don't feel like you need to cook, huge meals every night. You can just stick with easy things, whether it be like mac and cheese, anything like that. And it's totally fine. So I would say don't be too pressed about, trying to put out really great meals every night. Number 2, plan ahead. This is really, really crucial when you're planning or when you're cooking for more than one person. You should know what you need by the time you get to the grocery store. And I feel like most people at this age and budget usually know this already, but I just wanted to reiterate how important it is to plan ahead. So I use something like Notion. You can just do this on a note card, right, where I just like look at all the meals I'm going to eat during the week, and then I plan something for each of them. General tip is I would try to make your meals, stretch. And this applies to like all budgets and, brackets, right? Whether you're in college or whether you're working or you have a family, whatever. Make your meals try to stretch from like one day to another, right? So if I know I'm buying chicken for like let's say Monday dinner, I know that I need some chicken because we're doing something. I would try and think of maybe 2 or 3 more meals during the week where I can also implement chicken, or I can also like include chicken. That way I don't have to buy like a little container. I can just, get the discount by getting the bigger one, and then I can use it multiple times over the week. It also helps you can, clear out your freezer, make sure you're not just like letting stuff sit, and eventually have to throw it away. Last thing I would say, and again, this applies to all, brackets and all, budgets, any age group, is I would say either get familiar with cookbooks or start following some cooking influencers. some of my personal favorites, and maybe I will just like link them below. I actually have them sitting on a list right here. So there's like CJ Eats, Ian Cooks, H. Wu Lee, Tuedo Bay, Nutrition by Kylie, Ice Cream Cooks. There are so many people on social media where their entire job is just, you know, putting out these recipes. That's like what they do for a living. And so definitely take advantage of that. Usually they're pretty easy, they're pretty cheap, and they taste great. So I would definitely look into that. If that's not your cup of tea, right, and you're not super into social media, I would definitely look into cookbooks. Some of my favorite are like The Food Lab by Kenji Lopez. I'm working through like the French cookbook right now, which I also think is great. But get familiar with that sort of thing. Snoop Dogg just came out with a cookbook, I believe, and it has great reviews, so maybe pick that up. But there's a lot of ways where you can, you know, build up your cooking experience. Well, I hope this was helpful. Hopefully you learned something new, but that's all I got. I'll see you next time.